The Tortured Love of the Dead, young man at the fourth intersection. On a foggy day, along the path in the community, a female student is waiting for someone. After a while, she hears footsteps approaching, so she quickly lifts her school bag to cover her face and asks a man in black passing by to predict her love fate, wondering if she will find happiness in love. Upon hearing this, he stops and remains silent for a moment. She secretly observes him and notices that his eyes are completely white, his face pale, and he seems to be surrounded by an aura of darkness. He then answers her question calmly, stating that her love will not be fulfilled, before walking away, leaving her in a state of despair from the disappointing answer, while the dark aura consumes her mind. The scene then cuts to a classroom, where a new student has just joined mid-semester. His name is Ryusaket. The homeroom teacher mentions that Ryusaket used to live in this city, so some students in the class might recognize him. After school that day, a female student introduces herself to him, saying they attended the same kindergarten. Upon reflection, Ryusaket remembers her name is Minori, and he feels happy to at least have an old friend he knows. On the way home, Minori introduces her close friend Suzue from Class B to him. Suzue mentions that today, the girls in her class have been talking a lot about Ryusaket, saying he is handsome and looks great. However, they have to give up after seeing Minori with him. She also tries to set up her friend by saying that Minori is very popular, with many people trying to win her over. Additionally, those who wish to win Minori's heart have been going to the fortune teller at the street corner to see if they will be successful. During this, Minori shyly interrupts Suzue, saying she doesn't take Ryusaket seriously at all, and questions the predictions at the street corner, asking Suzue if she really believes that the words of passers-by have any magical power. Suzue, feeling curious, asks Ryusaket what he thinks about this, but Ryusaket remains silent for a moment before warning them not to get involved with the predictions at the street corner at all, then quickly walks home, leaving Minori and Suzue confused about why he seemed so tense about the question. The next day, it is another foggy day, and Ryusaket thinks that on such days, there will be many people wanting predictions standing around, waiting for passers-by to ask if their love will be fulfilled. If the answer is disappointing, most of them would commit suicide, just like the young woman at the beginning of the story, who slashed her throat with a cutter in the middle of the intersection, lying in a pool of blood in a horrifying scene. This incident spread throughout the school, and at that time, 2 female students were discussing it. They wondered why a first-year girl would consider suicide, especially since the day of the incident was foggy, making it difficult to see, and there was no suicide note or witnesses. However, some speculated that it might be due to the predictions at the street corner, recalling a similar incident that happened 7 or 8 years ago, when a woman who received a prediction also committed suicide. Meanwhile, Ryusaket, sitting in the classroom, overheard the girls' conversation, which made him start to sweat and feel uneasy, prompting him to leave the room. Minori, noticing Ryusaket's strange behavior, couldn't help but worry about him. Later, Ryusaket sat on the grass, reflecting on his childhood, and thinking that returning to this city must be a punishment for him. Memories of his childhood surfaced, recalling a foggy day when a young Ryusaket was running home. Along the way, he heard a woman's voice calling him. When he turned to look, he saw the woman, asking him to listen to her story. She told him that she had someone she liked very much, but the problem was that the person was already married with children. However, she had just had a child with him as well, placing her hand on her belly, believing she would give birth. When he learned of this, he became cold towards her, which was very cruel, right? Yet, she insisted that she still loved him, and loved him more and more, enough to die for him. After finishing her story, she turned to Yusuke and asked him what she should do. Young Ryusuke told her that she was speaking nonsense. She then asked him if her love for that person would be fulfilled or not. Ryusuke, feeling that the woman's relationship was immoral, immediately replied that there was no way it would be fulfilled. He then ran home, leaving the woman to drown in her disappointment. That night, Yusuke couldn't stop thinking about the woman and what would happen to her. The next morning, he walked back to the street corner where she had stood and was met with a horrifying sight. The woman had become a ghost, having slit her own throat with a knife, lying in a pool of blood, just like the first-year girl who was currently in the news. This event continued to haunt Ryusuke, as he believed he was the cause. The guilt of causing the woman and her unborn child to die made him feel he had to atone for his sins here. While Ryusuke was stressed about this, Minori approached him with concern, noting that he seemed unhappy and was acting strangely. She asked if something was bothering him, to which Ryusuke replied that he was fine. Minori then shared that she sometimes wondered about her own experiences with predictions on the street. Ryusuke told her she might be overthinking it, but she mentioned that it was a bad memory that constantly troubled her. She revealed that the woman who committed suicide 7 or 8 years ago was indeed her real aunt. Upon hearing this, Ryusuke felt shocked, believing this must be the karma for his past actions that brought all of this close to him. After that, Yusuke distanced himself from Minori, feeling guilty while she remained unaware of anything. Suzue, wanting to help, volunteered to ask Ryusuke what was going on. That afternoon, Suzue arranged to meet Ryusuke and opened the conversation by asking why he had been avoiding Minori lately, suggesting it was because of his feelings for her. He replied that it was complicated, stating that he shouldn't like her at all and shouldn't even talk to her. It was all his own fault, and there was nothing he could do about it. Even though Suzue tried to get him to share what had caused his change in behavior, Ryusuke simply told her to leave him alone. She felt helpless and apologized for arranging the meeting before walking away. After that, Suzu looked outside the school and saw the thick fog, which sparked an idea in her mind, to go seek a prediction at the corner. She stood waiting on the street for someone to pass by, not knowing whether it was lucky or unlucky that she happened to encounter her father and a man in a black suit walking by. The atmosphere was eerie, with silence all around, except for the sound of the man's footsteps. At that moment, Suzu greeted the man in black and asked if he could help her with a prediction. Before he could agree, she explained that it was about a friend whose boyfriend had started to resemble her more lately, but it seemed he had some issues as well. She wanted them to fall in love again, and asked what she should do. The man in black paused and replied that if she was worried about her friend's love, she should be more concerned about her own love life. After saying this, he walked away, leaving her to ponder his words for a moment. The next afternoon, Midori asked Suzue what she had talked about with Ryusuke. Suzue's response was filled with lies, saying that Ryusuke wanted to end their relationship and that she had heard a prediction at the street corner stating that her love with Ryusuke would never return to how it was. She also described the man in black as having a beautiful coldness that sent shivers down her spine, but even more than that. More than anything, what captivates her is the tone of his voice, which makes her realize that she has been deceiving herself. Now, she wants to do the opposite of what she desires. From now on, she declares that she will live honestly with her own heart, and decides to tell Midori that she likes Ryusuke the most. She has liked him since he moved in, and she apologizes to Midori for liking Ryusuke, but she truly likes him, so much that she would die for him. Because of that, since the two of them broke up, she truly feels lucky. Suzue keeps rambling to herself, while Minori feels stunned by what her close friend has said. She also feels that Suzue has become someone she has never known before. From that day on, Suzue starts to approach Ryusuke more and more, who thinks to himself that no matter how hard Suzue tries, it won't work. However, as time goes on, things start to feel strange. One day, Ryusuke can't take it anymore when Suzue offers him a bento box. He tells her that if she keeps following him like this, he will call the police. The scene shows Suzue's pale and emaciated face, as she is so obsessed with Ryusuke that she doesn't care about anything else. She even tries to snatch the bento box he prepared, saying she will handle his bento herself, but he insists she must take her own. Suzue is now starting to lose her mind, and Ryusuke has to push her down, telling her that he will never like her because the person he likes is Minori. He says he doesn't want to see her again, and tells her to go far away. Suzue asks him what will happen to her love when she received a prediction from the corner of the street. The man in black told her to worry about her own love, and that's why she has been following Ryusuk. So if she likes him, then what about her love? There is no way they can be happy together for long, and she also says that she likes him so much that she would die for him. The next day, Yusuke hears from a friend that there has been a fourth suicide at the intersection, and it seems that the person had received a prediction from the man in black. As they talk, his friend suggests that the man in black might be the god of death. When mentioning the god of death, the friend says that someone who looks like the god of death is staring at him. When Yusuke turns to look, he sees Suzue, who is now watching him with a frightening expression. After school that day, Suzue continues to follow him like a shadow until he decides to approach her and apologize for what he did regarding her bento box that morning. He tells her that he doesn't hate her, but he still can't forget Minori, so he doesn't want to date anyone in the meantime. Upon hearing this, Suzue starts to cry and turns away, while Ryusuk thinks he should just tell Hinori the truth so he wouldn't have to avoid her like this. However, at that moment, Suzue decides to take out a cutter knife and slashes it across her own neck, causing her blood to spray out and mix with the white fog, turning it red before she dies right in front of Ryusuk. After that incident, Ryusuk thought he could no longer remain passive. He had to find the man in black, starting by giving predictions at the street corners. He intended to give predictions to those he cared about, believing he needed to do the opposite of what the man in black would do, as this might be the only way to confront it. He began giving hopeful predictions to the people he met, partly as a way to atone for the sins he committed against a woman 8 years ago. While he was walking and giving hopeful predictions, he encountered the spirits of those who had committed suicide due to failed predictions at the street corner. To be sure, he walked to the spot where Suzue had taken her life and encountered her spirit still lingering there. However, this did not deter his determination to continue his work, as he kept giving predictions. Midori soon learned about this and wanted to know why Ryusuk continued to give hopeful predictions. He told her that he wouldn't stop until he caught the man in black at the 4th Street corner before he ran away from her, even though Midori was trying to hold him back. Finally, on that day, he encountered the man in black who had just walked past him. He tried to run after him, but due to the thick fog, he lost sight of him. When he realized it, he found himself at the 4th intersection from 8 years ago and met the spirit of a woman who was Minori's aunt, the one he had predicted for as a child. Her spirit was still lingering there, not going anywhere, and a female giant pointed the way for Ryusuk to walk down another street. Meanwhile, Minori was trying to find Ryusuk but instead encountered the man in black. Just as she saw him, Ryusuk called out to her, and she told him that she had seen the man in black. However, when they turned to look again, the man in black had vanished, and the fog in the area disappeared in an instant. Girl Paint. This is the story of Yuriko, a girl who used to be very articulate, but one day she suddenly stopped speaking. When she does speak, she struggles to pronounce certain letters. One day, her close friend Ed went to ask her if she was feeling unwell, to which she replied that she didn't know what was wrong. After that day, she never returned to school. Concerned, Ed went to visit Yuriko at home. While standing at the front of the house, he heard something unusual from the side of the house and went to check. He found Yuriko's parents trying to get rid of slugs. The father was stomping on them to kill them, while the mother was sprinkling salt on the ground to drive them away. However, they complained that no matter what they did, the slugs kept coming back, and in greater numbers. When Yuriko's parents met Ed, they took him inside to see Yuriko. At that moment, Yuriko was covering her mouth with her hands, as if she wanted to vomit something. When her parents approached to check on her, she tried to push her mother away and told her not to interfere. Suddenly, something began to crawl out of her mouth, and a giant slug appeared, emerging from her mouth. Yuriko was trying to call for help. As the giant slug came out, a thick, slimy mucus began to flow out, prompting her parents to decide to soak her in salt, to drive away the giant slug. They told Yuriko to get into the salt, and to open her mouth wide. At that moment, the father noticed the increasing number of slugs outside the house. After a while, the mother asked if this was taking too long, and as the father was scooping out salt, he stumbled upon Yuriko's clothes, causing them to panic about where she had gone. The mother then started to feel around and found her head, realizing that her body had shrunk so much it was almost invisible. The mother shouted that the salt was making Yuriko's body shrink. They then tried to pour sand water over Yuriko, hoping to restore her body, but they were disappointed when what came out of her mouth was a giant snail, with Yuriko's head now transformed into its shell. Additionally, when someone approached Yuriko's shell, it would look back with a sad expression.